So we're also curious to know, what is one like stereotype or myth that you just really want to like debunk about mental health, and has that just kind of continued on from when you started? Like, was the stereotype always prevalent in mental health services?
The biggest one for me would be that people with a mental health problem are dangerous. If I could wipe that off the face of the earth, I would do that. Yeah, people would get so much more support and so much more understanding, and not they're easily blamed for things, you know. The idea of schizophrenia, you know, it's a poorly chosen word to begin with, but it's also seen as like, if you've got schizophrenia, you're going to be a mad axe man or something like that, you know. Whoa, you're going to be haunting this village, crazy howling in the middle of the night or something. And the chances are the reality is 99% of people with a diagnosis anywhere near that are more likely to be a victim. And it's because we're not getting to help people in time, when on a very rare occasion that somebody with a mental health condition has caused damage to somebody else. It's because we fail to get to them on time, you know. Yeah. So I would take that myth away, for sure.
For me, it's when someone has a diagnosis. It's a diagnosis that could be important to help the family to understand something. And the diagnosis could be important, obviously for the young person to have some understanding of what the difficulties are. And it could be a kind of a way of getting certain resources, like at school, or kind of extra help, or kind of support in school in some other way. But the diagnosis is not the person. The person is the person. Yeah, and we have to be careful that we don't kind of see people, or that they see themselves, or other people see them as, oh, this person's got, I don't know, whichever diagnosis, autism, or schizophrenia, or depression, or anxiety, whatever. But that it doesn't mean that is that person. It just means that they've got a condition. Yeah, it might be long term, it might not be long term, and it can change as well. The actual diagnosis can change in terms of severity, and maybe that's more because I'm coming from a kind of more social work and a social perspective. That I think a lot of it can be triggered by the environment and the family. I'm against medical diagnosis because I think it is important, but it has its place. I'm not against medication, but for young people, it has its place, and there should be things tried, and medication should be a last resort.
So we've talked about the services, and you've also mentioned a bit about CBT being like the primary go-to for like
a lot of things at the moment.
Yeah. So what happens when, unfortunately, a young person doesn't respond to the treatment?
So CBT is one of the things that's kind of like NHS in terms of guidance, and there is a lot of evidence to say that it is effective. Yeah, it's not the only thing. There's things from narrative work to trauma-focused work to psychotherapy. Yeah, so there's so many types. There's so many types of treatment out there as well. So the only thing I would say though, and that applies to everyone, not just young people, in any walk of life, is whatever theory that's being used, it can only work if there's a certain amount of motivation. So if the young person or the family or both are not motivated to change, and sometimes that is a challenge in itself, because if someone is very anxious or very low in mood, or very, not kind of motivated to change, then it doesn't matter what treatment it is, it's not going to work. And it's important that, again, we don't write people off, because it might be that person's not motivated at that time. And this is like kind of the irony of what I'm saying, because sometimes I do think medication has its place for some people. Yeah, that can kind of help in terms of to feel less kind of anxious or whatever the particular illness, or depression, so that they then can manage in a talking therapy. Because I obviously can tell my bias is very much around the talking therapies, because I think that is more longer term, and you're not dependent on medication. Yeah, although it has its place, sometimes you need a bit of both. But talking therapies, for my kind of, in my head, is the one that's more likely to work longer term for that person, and make a lasting change, hopefully for life. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
And you just keep going. Unfortunately, so the idea is that somehow, somewhere, some way, that you'll make something work for a person eventually. It's not exactly like that. Like Pete was saying, it's about that person working in partnership, and they're not ready at that point. It might well be that later on in life they will be. So we couldn't make it at this stage, but maybe when they're a little bit older, maybe still within CAMHS or at a later point, they have more of that opportunity. But it's also it's again that flexibility, I think. So it's a very good. It's a close relationship. We have such a privilege. We go in people's houses, and they tell us things they would never dream of telling anybody else. We know so much about people's personal lives, either on an individual basis or within the whole family. So it's a very delicate area to work with people with their mental health often. And we expect them to trust us. But if I spoke in a really strong Scouse accent, and that was me, you might think, I'm only getting every other word. I can't really tell what he's saying. Or it might be something about my demeanour that you think, I don't feel the chemistry. So why not it be that you can try with somebody else? So it doesn't always have to also be that person. It should be that, it's easy to get access to somebody else. We like it really to be even more easy than it is, because we have pathways that are quite a bit rigid nowadays and things like that. So you might have an emotional difficulty, but we've discovered, no, it's more of a neurodevelopmental. Getting you onto a different pathway is not necessarily such a quick thing. But all of that type of flexibility, or it might well be you hate coming into CAMHS. The last thing you want to do is be seen walking into CAMHS, that mental health place. So we'll see you at home, so that's us. Or we'll say, well, what about we'll see you at school? Is that more like it? Because actually you're a bit uncomfortable at home. Or we say that we'll see you in a cafe, or we'll go for a walk, or wherever it might well be. It might be at your grandmother's house. So all of those things are important in order to make us effective. Yeah. And I would be exactly the same. We're no different, it's not. We're all people exactly the same.
Okay, so I think this is the last question. But what has been your favourite moment working in CAMHS?
Gosh,
apart from the day I get my pay, no. No, I think there's lots. My favourite moment, I think it's when you get feedback.
Yeah,
from
always
a kid or their or their mum or dad or whoever their carer is. That's pretty special. When funny, we were talking about this just earlier today. I don't do private work or anything because I just work in the NHS and that's it. But when you've done something right, when someone says, "Can I give you a card or something?" Does that make sense? To say, just a recognition of like you've done well, or they just say, it was, my son's kind of so much happier, or my daughter's so much happier, or does that make sense? I know basically the young person is in a better place, and they give you the feedback and they say thank you for this, or they say, I really like this, or I'm glad I'm much better than I was when we first. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes they can lose it with you, and you work through that. And so, sometimes a young person might say, I know I kind of had to go at you first time, or I didn't more interested. And you get the feedback, positive feedback, then you've done something right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you build on that to make sure that the next person you're seeing, you can build on that again. Yeah. So for me, that's pretty special and unique. And sometimes it's just out of the blue. Someone can ring you up and say, but they're older than, they're over 18 or something. I got that recent. Actually, the weekend, someone rang me and said, my daughter's really, she's really struggling at the moment. She's an adult. She's 18. Do you do private work? And I thought, it's a good feeling. Yeah, although I could signpost to the right place. Yeah, so that's kind of a recognition, that you did something right. Yeah. So for me, it's that more than anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I would struggle to give you a best moment. There's just so many.
Oh.
There's just so many. All of the feedback stuff is great, especially when they put money in my offshore account. That's really good.
That's where I'm going wrong. I'm not that way inclined with no offshore. I'm just about to buy onshore.
Yeah, there's a number of times when it's just fantastic job. So, there's that privilege bit, but sometimes you get a call and things are going very wrong for somebody. It's the end of the day and you think, right, okay, I'm going to have to go here. You're doing the right thing, but there's also, oh gosh, it's late, so I'm going to be working late this evening or whatever. And I've had so many times like that, and you get somewhere and it's chaos. People are falling out with each other, whatever that might well be. They're misunderstanding each other, they're angry or whatever, and lots of tears. And by the time you finished, people have really responded. They've seen things quite differently. They have opened up a bit. People have recognised maybe how important they are to each other. Who knows? This type of situation. But there's times when you go places and everything just comes together. And yeah, I go home after that thinking I've just got the best job in the world. And there's nothing going to beat it, really. And I've had so many moments when I think it's the best job in the world. Yeah. Guess that's why I'm still here.
Yeah, that's...
After all these years. Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for coming to our podcast, and we hope that everyone listening has had their questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did we bring our sticks? Don't know if I might need help getting up.